Okay, so we got to we were doing the Klallim of the Gemara, and we did Kitzur Klallim that I remember, and did Shimush Talmidei Chachamim. I think we're up to there. Omer Shenamar.
Where are you?
It's I'll show you on the screen. Omer Shenamar over here, page 88 in the Gemara, second column. Omer.
Yeah, okay, got it.
Okay, Omer Shenamar. Gemara says Shenamar he raya Gemara mea pasuk. It's a definite proof in the pasuk. Omer mishum Shenamar hu asmachta. I had no idea this is the case. This is the first time in my life I'm hearing that. Did you know that was the case?
I didn't know it was the case, but maybe we'll start paying attention to it going forward.
Yes, now we'll start paying attention. Okay, so again, when you say it says Shenamar, it's the definitive drasha from the pasuk, or the definitive limud. When it says Mishum Shenamar, it says Machta. And this is, I guess, the Shreis Yosef, whoever says this. Kamhevi b'shem Ramban, means the name Ramban the Famim, Omer the cross Machta. Vena kavana shehi midrabana. Doesn't mean midrabana el she'ein mipasuk zeh raya gemura. V'evshad havi halacha l'Moshe misinai v'asmechei akra. This is a famous ritva along these lines, which doesn't say precisely the same thing, but the ritva says the some asmachtas are just mnemonic devices, the way you remember things. Other asmachtas are things that the Torah wanted us to enact and derive, but not that there should be the level of a Beraisos, but that they should be on a lower level of obligation, i.e. the Rabbanan, but not that they're not the Drashos Gemuras. The Ramban is saying something similar, but not quite the same thing. He's saying that there can be a smachta which is connected to halacha Moshe Misinai, which should mean to be Beraisos, regardless of the fact that the drasha is not a full-fledged drasha.
Okay.
V'hilchos Eli Siman Tov Reish Pei Zayin Aval Pi Shamar Pamim Remez L'Davar Zeh Min HaTorah, even though it says Remez, Eino Mid Rabbanon, don't think that makes it the Rabbanon. It's still Min HaTorah. Now the fact that it says Remez L'Davar Min HaTorah is not in itself proof that it's not a Beraisos thing. Even though normally the word Remez would be taken to mean that. Rather, it means that it's an actual source in the Torah. Okay. Kasabit Krisus is one of the Klallim Sfarim, Shar Gimel. Kol kushish lo timtza abai v'rava o amoroi achrine ravina v'ravashi tiknum. That's interesting. Anytime you find a question of Gemara without Abai Rava, some other Amora, so then it's Ravina and Ravashi who put that into the Gemara at that point. This is a subject of big controversy nowadays because there's this new shita of learning out there called Rivadim, translates into layers, which originated in the work of Dr. Weissel Livni and Professor Pinchas Heyman at Bar Ilan, in which the contention is that the stomach of the Gemara is not as authoritative in Amora as the attributed statements, and that you can peel away the stomach of the Gemara and give even your own interpretations of the attributed statements and not be bound by the statements made by the stomach of the Gemara. So what here the Krisus is saying is that no, every statement you have in the Gemara, which does not have attribution, a stomach of the Gemara, you assume comes from Ravina and Ravashi. It could be obviously their base medrash as well, but from an authoritative source.
Right. Well, yeah, Ravadim, I've heard not good things about it. So
you've heard what?
I've heard that it's not proper.
Yes, but it's a big controversy today, especially in the Yeshiva Bnei Akiva, whether it's used it or not. Okay.
I mean, look, Uvda, there are layers within the statements and Doros and so on and so forth. But to make the step to say that you got to throw out the stem of the Gemara, that is a big step.
Okay, I didn't quite hear that because your mouth is just below the level of the camera. So
There are clearly different layers and different dorot between
Yes.
the Tanaim and the Moraim, but to make the jump to just throw out the stem of Gemara just seems,
Right.
unsubstantiated.
yes, that's generally speaking, that's I think is a proper approach. Okay, Kokra lo mefarshe Rav Yitzchak bar Dime, v'cho masnisa lo mefarshe lo Rav Ziri lo mefarshe. It says in Gemara in Zvachim Daf Mem Gimel, which I do not recall, but evidently they are considered to be the authoritative Amoraim when it comes to explaining a pasuk and explaining a brisa. And therefore, if they are not the ones who explain the pasuk of the brisa, there's room to argue. Once they give an explanation, that is considered the definitive. Okay, which is a fascinating idea.
Well, I guess that gives us the basis for, two psukim and two amoraim, and what does A do with B's pasuk, and what does B do with A's pasuk, right?
Yeah. I'm trying to see. Yeah. So what's the next thing here? Okay, so we have to go back now to the text itself. Okay, Atosefta. Shira Mishnah. Tosefta is the leftovers from the Mishnah. The Simona Tana. I guess when it says Tana in the in the Gemara,
that means we learned in a Beraisos or Tosefta.
I'm not sure it means it's Simona Tana. Does it mean the sim is that a Tana said it? Or it means the sim is where the Gemara used the lashon of Tanya. Lashon of Tana, which we know Tosefta is described as Tanya, not as Tana.
Right.
So I don't know what he means. Beraisos calls from Shetigo Kamoim Achar Mishnah. So Tosefta, he says specifically, is a shiur Mishnah. It's like the outtakes of the Mishnah, or I don't know if outtakes is a good word, but rather it's the Mishnah is terse, but end up on the cutting floor, not necessarily because it's not reliable, but because there was no room for it. That's in the Tosefta. But besides that, there's also the Beraisos, which are not limited to Tosefta.
Finish that first sentence.
What?
Finish the first sentence. Tosefta is shiur Mishnah Simona Tana.
Right. When it comes in the wake of a Mishnah, which I'm not sure exactly what that means, there is it's a sustained halacha. I guess when
you got things like Tanya Nami Hachi.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, then I'm hoping that the commentary will explain more about that. But Beraisos calls from Shetiva Kamonim Achar Mishnah, which is much more than a Tosefta. Mishnah Rabbi Chia, Mishnah Rabbi Yeshua, Mishnah Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, Beraisos Rabbi Shmuel, Mechilta Rabbi Shmuel, V'osios Rabbi Akiva, V'Toras Kohanim V'Safra V'Sefer V'Yikra Bilvad. It's only in V'Yikra. V'Sifri, which is B'Midbar Sinai V'Eladvarim, it's on both those Dvarim. Mechilta Shmois. Safra is V'Yikra. Sifri is B'Midbar and Dvarim. Chayetzavim. The synonym on Beraisos, here he says that I did not know this. Tosefta is Tana, a Beraisos, Tana Rabbanan, or a Tani Chada, or a Tani Idach. If nobody argues on the Beraisos, he halacha mechuyemes, then it is a sustained halacha. Okay, Masha nechleku alav. And if there's a machlekes on what it says, then go after whatever the Gemara determines to be the psak.
Okay.
It's a big chidushim. It's depressing that you can get to your 60th year of your life and not know any of this stuff. Okay, Kol Tana says the Perush. Kol Tana v'Tani Allah Tosefta shenitbasva Mishnah. It says those words. He has the word Tani Allah. It's a Tosefta which is added to the Mishnah because of somebody or other. I don't know who that is. V'haya divrei Rebbe b'Mishnah ma'ata kamus Rabbi. The words of Rebbe in the Mishnah were small in volume and great in quality, small in quantity and great in quality. Ein bo mila batola. There's no word for naught. V'yakol mevur lo, and everything was clear to him. L'rochav sichlo, based on the breadth of his intellect. Ach laboy machrov. But to those who came after him, his words are sometimes too deep, which I assume means in this case too terse. Therefore, one of the students saw, I guess he's anonymous, to make a book, to reveal and elaborate on the words of Rabbi via Tosefta Binyono Tosefes al HaMishnah. Okay, wow. Again, something I never thought of. That Tosefta means Tosefes al Mishnah. This is pretty approachable. Kasab Krisus Mashnikra Batamut Tosefta ain't a mash onakurin Tosefta. Okay, he just undermines the entire thing. He says that which we have a Tosefta in the back of Gemara, those are Beraisos, but they're not what's is being called Tosefta in the Talmud. In the Talmud, when it uses the word Tosefta, it's specifically referring to the additional material. But that which you call Tosefta is a separate book. Okay, so that Tana and the Tanya law, those are terms for that book called the Tosefta, of which our Tosefta may or may not be a part.
Okay.
And our Tosefta, according to this, is Beraisos. Okay. Kasa Perish Mishnayos Eitz Chaim Bagdama Zelshon Acha Shechubru Mishnayos Sheish Storim. After the Mishnayos were made, the 6th Sidrei Mishnah, Ra Rabbi Chia Talmido Rebbe Shutivei Mishnah Stumin. He saw the words of Rabbi were, difficult to understand. Chiber Tosefta. So Rabbi Chia, not an anonymous comment. I don't know if he's right. He's contradicting the previous paragraph. It's complimenting the previous paragraph. I don't know. Could be either way.
He's bringing two different sources.
Yeah. So Shayu Divrei Mishnah Simon the Seventh Yan the Seventh Mishnah V'Gilui Tama V'Kach Chibur Rabbi Chia Rabbi Yoshia Chachamim Achrei Acherim Beraisos Ritzamar Loshon Bara, meaning Aramaic Chutz. Shem Chutz the Midrash Shosha Rabbi, they were stated outside Rabbi's base medrash. For many years I had difficulties. That's good that the makes me feel good. One of the Rishonim had this problem. Rather, either Tana or Tani Allah. And Omer lo k'sov kach v'kach, and evidently the Toseftas were dictated by Rabbi Yonasi to Rabbi Chia, or Rabbi Chia said them in front of Rabbi, and Rabbi edited them verbally and said this included, this don't include, and that's what we have to say. By the mere Rabbi lo shno Rabbi Chia minayin. So many places in Shas says if there's no indication that Rabbi said it, Rabbi Chia, where did he get it from? So that means that a Beraisos is only authoritative if we can trace it not just to Rabbi Chia, but through Rabbi Chia to Rabbi Yehuda.
Okay. If
it would only be a Beraisos of Rabbi Chia, that of itself would not be sufficient. I think because Rabbi Chia was a bridge figure, right? He's a bridge between the Tanoim and Amoraim. It's considered to be both the Tana and Amora. So therefore, he only appears rarely, if ever, and it might be never, in the Mishnayos. And he's considered to be basically the scribe, the holy scribe of Yehuda Nasi. Okay. Beraisos and Mishnayos name was Shalomidas Rebbe. So Tosefta was not edited by Rebbe the same way the Mishnah was, but They were approved by Rabbi. Okay.
Okay.
Beraisos hey mishnayos, meaning Tanaic statement. I'm sorry. Beraisos mishnayos shenem shel midas Rabbi. Chutz medrasho. He accept. They're outside his base medrash. Im shayu mishnayos min atofrei sedarim rishonim. Although they may have been mishnayos from the ancient. I don't want to use the word mythical because it's negative connotations, but the ancient legendary shots, which had 600 sedarim instead of 6. So we say the 6 of them should have a distillation of those 600.
Okay.
So there could be these shots for those 600. Oh, shahotzi midaitam. Or Rabbi Chia came over them on his own. On his own might mean that he got it from a non-authoritative source. And therefore there came times when the Beraisos is said to be mishabeshta, distorted.
Mm-hmm.
Reason why it's called distorted is because it was not one which it's not one of the ones Rebbe actually approved. Okay. So again, we're not left with a definitive statement as to whether the Tosefta which you have in back Gemara is the Tosefta which Rebbe approved, or if it's the Beraisos that Rabbi Chia compiled. My inclination is to say that it's the latter. And the word Tosefta is technically a misnomer and misapplied to those series of Beraisos in the back of the Gemara.
Okay.
Beraisos einam perush Mishnah. Kamo Tosefta. He said, "Hanal Rabdinim shechitza tanoim." Allah Tanoim came up with. Hey, those Tanoim comes. Come, nevertheless, call ma the tiny Rabbi Chia. Anything Rabbi Chia put into a brisa, it's hinted at a Mishnah, as long as if it's authoritative. Kamash kasav ilfa b'tainis, kamash amar ilfa b'tainis ubsuvas. Call them our milsa Rabbi Chia v'lo pashtilei masnisen. In other words, Ilfa came back from his long business trip, and he was in some disrepute. He said, "You think I stopped learning? Anything which you bring me a brisa, I'll bring you a halacha, which is it encompasses it in the Mishnah." So evidently, all the brises of Rabbi Chia, even the ones which I guess are mishabeshta, or maybe only not with the ones not the ones which are mishabeshta, not authorized, but authorized brises certainly are linked to the Mishnah.
Okay. Well, I read this last sentence in the previous paragraph a little differently. That the Beraisos were simply collected statements of Tanaim, not necessarily done by Rabbi Chia.
Yeah, but it's Remiza b'masnisim. What does it mean, Remiza b'masnisim?
I think there's two things going on here. There's the Tosefta, which is Rabbi Chia, and that's more authoritative, and that's Remiza b'Mishnah. And then there's the Beraisos, where we said we have different lashon for the Beraisos, Tani Allah, and so on and so forth, that doesn't refer to a Tosefta. Those were Tanaitic text that was floating around.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I understood it.
It may well be, because it seems like let's see what it says further. If it's not a brisa from their house, but came from a different house based medrash, we don't ask questions and don't resolve questions on its basis. Because so those were beyond the base medrash, certainly of inferior quality. Kol brisa time is lo amri batani ploini. Again, I'm not sure it means they authored it, but evidently they definitely edited it. Kasav Rashi, Rabbi Chia, Rabbi Yosha, Sijus Beraisos. The Dikku b'divrei kol chacham amar, kamosha amar. So they meticulous in recording the statements. But there are other Tanoim, meaning people who learned Beraisos or said over Beraisos, who were held in not such high regard in their Batei Medrash, who had stuff on that they dreamt up. They're medameh. But time sheets of Beraisos mishubashos. And the reason there are Beraisos Meshubashos is mipnei shekshomim eze dover me'eze tana, when they heard something from some tana, boyim heim batzmam, they themselves came l'tulasis tam l'dorab to give a reason for it. Kufi hatama is eze din v'nosei acher. And based on some logic which they saw elsewhere, they say this must be the logic of this halacha as this Tana as well. And not only that, but these Tanoim went so far as to write the logic for this halacha as if the other Tana said it, whereas it's their extrapolation. And therefore, which is a very bad thing. And Tana actually never said that at all. That's Mishloach Kodesh evidently. Okay. Do you want to go on, or do we want to stop here for today?
Why don't we finish to the bottom of the column, and then we'll know where to start next week.
Okay. Because of Arosh, Bechulim Berg Beis, the Mistaber Tfei, L'meimar shelo ratza ba'al Gemara levi Beraisos shleim b'tosefta. He didn't want to bring the Beraisos from the Tosefta Lishon Baya to resolve a question. Shun Kimle the Lo Matanya Berachos of Rabbi Yoshia, even though it's from a Tosefta, which seems to be a very big contradiction to what we said before. Because it's not from the base Menashe Rechiv Rabbi Yosha. Beis Mochalav, should line it, Yoser, Vishnoma Shalo Yada La Ba'al Gemara. So it's better to assume that the Ba'al Gemara was not aware, rejected a Brisa, was not aware of a Brisa. I mean, the Brisa is so well cross-referenced by them, that was more likely that he rejected a Brisa than he didn't remember a Brisa.
Okay.
When we establish Kol Tosefta Shlo Nispashto at Achas Sidra Gemara, makes sense a Tosefta which should not get widespread publicity until after Gemara is arranged. Lab the Samcha, it's not reliable. The Mistama came and Shlotzul Chacham Yisrael Chaber Talmud. We saw once the Chacham Yisrael wanted to put together the Talmud. Chakra B'darshu, they analyzed and examined. Later, Kosher Shiklu B'dei Divir Chachamim, to know all the Sweim which were made concerning the words of the sages. And they chose to include the ones which were reliable. So okay. If it's past the time of the Talmud, it's not
if a brisa was published,
yeah, it's not
so reliable.
So most midrashim are after the time of the Talmud. They're technically brises. They're not reliable.
Okay. I thought
some midrashim are from the time of the Klallim and Amoraim.
So you're talking about the halachic midrashim, or you're talking about you're talking about the halachic midrashim or the general midrashim?
It could be also halachic, but I think it's primarily agadic. But yes, but there are midrashi halacha also, which were later, but it's mostly a midrashi agada, and he's saying that you can't rely on them because even they bring down statements from specific Klallim Amoraim because it could be their distortions or misattributed.
Mm-hmm.
That's an unpassed out of a medrash. Because of Sefer Torah Chaim B'Sofa Zelshano ain't something ala Tosefta. She said there's a Mishnah by Gemara. Of course, this makes sense. Arrive in Perek Bad the Meila wrote. I'm sorry, that's the right one, I guess. And B'Divrei Kes Mishnah Yirlishim Yicholim Anu Lashus Tosefta. In HaMishnah, if we see that Tosefta and the Mishnah are in sync, so then even that ends up on the Gemara, somehow we can rely on that, which is a pretty shocking thing. That if we have Mishnah Tosefta, we can use them to band them together to go against the Gemara. Okay, many chidushim today.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
All right, so who's the author of the central text and who's the author of the stuff around it?
It says that At the beginning, I think. The author in the middle text was Shmuel HaNaggid, who was an early Rishon, right? The author of the Kitzur Klallim Mishnah around it was I don't know.
Would that be mentioned in the shar at the
It
front?
says here at the beginning, it says in Kitzur Klallim Melukat Misifrei Sefer HaKlallim. Sounds like the Vilna Shas actually got the Vilna people actually collected these, and it's pretty impressive that the Ben Aryeh, who I think I mentioned he was Rabbi Solslanter's father, wrote a commentary on the compendium made by the authors of the Vilna Shas.
Who was the Ben Aryeh?
Rabbi Solslanter's father.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so the Kitzur Klallim, the parish is actually from, not written by, but Monan Achim Ram, but somebody in their some team in their employ. The art school of the 1800s.
Well, that's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, let's see. I mean, you got this whole at the back of the shar. There's this whole list of 103 different Hosafot.
Yeah. Maybe that's in there though. The suffix on the back of the Gemara sometimes are not all listed there, but might be listed there.
Okay.
Okay. Very good.
All right. Shkoyach.
I'm looking to see.
So we'll see you next week. Thank you.
What?
Talk to you next week.
Talk to you next week.
All right. Bye.